Prepare to experience the strongest radio allowable by law. Secrets will be revealed. Myths dispelled. From the studio gym where excuses never apply, it's Superhuman Radio with your host, Carl Lenore.
Welcome back to Superhuman Radio. I haven't shaved in like a week. Ever since I came home from vacation for Thanksgiving, I've been in a funk and trying to snap out of it. Maybe I'll snap out of it tomorrow. Anyway, we have a great show today. This is actually a continuation of a show that we did about a week or so ago. We talked about the role of fasting in managing infections. And at the end of the show, I had intended to talk about something that I was more excited about. And we're going to get to talk about it today. If you remember that show, we lost our connection. We lost all the internet. There was a car accident on the corner, and they hit a pole and they knocked out all the internet. So we were not able to finish that show, but we will finish it today. Before we do that, we have to thank our title sponsor, and that's Legendary Foods. They have seasoned almonds, flavored nut butters, and the tasty pastry, all with 0 sugar. And the tasty pastry is unbelievable. They've been out of stock. A lot of you have been emailing me. Wow, they're out of stock. They're so good. You really feel like you're eating a piece of cake. What started out to be a alternative to a horrible Pop-Tart became so much more. Less than 1 gram of sugar, 20 grams of high-quality protein, magnificent flavors. Go to shrnetwork.biz/legendary and use the code SHR10 to save 10% on everything at their website. And now let me bring my guest on. Of course, there's a little delay in bringing her on, but we are joined again, returning guest, Franziska Graef from the University of British Columbia. How are you, Franziska?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Wonderful. And hopefully we'll have no technical difficulties today.
We'll try.
So last week, you and I were talking aside before the show about fasting in general. Fasting is back in 2008, I did my first interview with Dr. Mark McCarty about every other day fasting in rodents. And it showed really interesting information about things that would imply longevity, sirtuin upregulation, fat oxidation, all these wonderful things. And from that, we have extrapolated out an entire industry. We have fasting apps and fasting books. And even there's a product out there, I can't think of the name of it, but it's a meal plan for fasting. Wait a minute. I thought fasting meant don't eat, but now we have fasting mimicking diets.
Yes, fasting mimicking diet.
We have fasting mimicking supplements. And like always, every time something in science looks intriguing, we turn it into a cottage industry. We'd exploit it and we destroy it. We ruin it. We ruin the original pristine intentions of it. Am I being too harsh?
No, I actually happen to agree with you quite a bit there. And I've mentioned this to you and to some people before about, there is a huge misconception in the fasting literature at the moment, and unfortunately, it's not just propagated by people that want to make money off of it, but also the researchers, or some of the researchers themselves, don't really stress the difference between what they see in a mouse model and what that means, how we can translate it to humans. So let me explain this real quick. So mice, and this is unfortunately still, of course, mostly the model we use in research, right? Most of the time we use mice as our model. And so mice have a 5 to 7 times higher metabolism than humans. So, their heartbeat per minute is about 300 to 500 beats per minute.
Wow.
Ours is like, if you're well-trained, 50, 60, something like that. Anyways, so, and they lose about, if you fast a mouse for 24 hours, the mouse loses about 10% of its body weight, And so to achieve that in a way, in a human, we find that it's equivalent to anywhere between 4 to 7 day fast, like a prolonged fast in a human. Right. And so this is a lot different than, every other day fasting, that what is, being propagated or practiced by some, or time restricted eating. So, and if you look very closely at the literature, you like fasting can do amazing things. Like there's studies on how it can reboot the immune system, how it can protect from cancer, how it can do, neuroprotection, like all these amazing things. But most of these studies come from mouse data, and the mice have been fasting for 1 to 2 days. And then, the humans want to do the same thing, and they want to fast for 24 hours and expect to see the same results. And this is just not happening. Sorry,
so we are having some technical difficulties, but we're not being. I can't believe this. I've done shows all week.
Okay. Are you still?
Okay, I think people don't want us to do this show. Okay, so let's dive right back into it. So everybody got it wrong because everybody's doing time restricted fasting.
Yes.
And they're fasting 16, 20 hours a day sometimes, and expecting magic to happen. But you said something else. You indicated that this type of fasting that we're doing is more like calorie restriction. And we've had research on calorie restriction. So talk about the real effects of today's type of fasting that people all promote.
Yes. So, and this is also coming from a very recent study, also from animals, I have to stress. But basically, when you calorically restrict for a long time, or basically when you fast for 20 hours a day, which is, you have then 4 hours to eat, or maybe an 8-hour window, most of the time, and people exploit this to lose weight, of course, most of the time you will not eat your normal amount of calories. You will calorically restrict yourself. And, this is okay to do for a few days, but if you have this as a lifestyle, to do this over months and years, you can, run into problems. And so in this recent study in Nature Metabolism, this was published, what they found was they looked at mice, and they had the mice, eat their normal amount of food and then fast, or they had the mice, calorically restrict and fast, or just calorically restrict. And what they found was, first of all, the prolonged fasting was necessary for all the beneficial effects on their metabolism and the longevity and so on and so forth. But when it was combined with the caloric restriction on top of that, actually it switched to becoming, the mice did not benefit anymore. It became, less longevity and less metabolic health. And so, it seems to be important to have these prolonged periods of fast, but then not, do this for, weeks, months at a time, and not run this caloric restriction program, which, most people inevitably will do if they, do, let's say, time restricted eating for 18 hours and only have this 8-hour window or whatever 6-hour window left.
So now we naturally sleep for 8 to 10 hours.
Yes.
And it's not wise to eat right before bed for metabolic purposes.
Yeah.
So we probably easily hit a 12-hour fast every night
Exactly.
without trying. So my impression is that 12-hour fast is more than enough to convey the benefits that we're looking for. That this is not from a long fast, but just for time restricted or time compartmentalized feeding. Isn't that 12 hours enough?
Yes, you're spot on with that. In fact, if you were to ask me what is the time that I would give people to not eat, this would be 12 hours, because I think evolutionary, this is exactly what, kind of the time maybe we were supposed to sleep and not eat, and the light dark cycle and so on and so forth, close to the equator. And so yes, 12 hours. And also in the literature, if you look at the literature, human studies, I'm now talking specifically, everything that has to do with like a 12-hour window of fasting, daily fasting, seems to be completely safe. I'm not aware of any negative effects in human studies where 12-hour fasting windows have been looked at. However, for the windows that exceed 12 hours, like 14, 16, 18 hours, data becomes way more mixed. Yes, there is some clinical studies that also show some beneficial effects, but it depends. Is this a 1-month trial, a 2-month trial, a 6-month trial? And then you also start to see detrimental effects from these, longer intermittent fasting periods for longer months. So yes, 12 hours is what I do as well. It's also easy, if you have a late dinner at 10 p.m., okay, next time I can eat is 10 a.m. If you eat at 6 p.m., you can eat at 6 a.m. And there's also a study, but this was just, I believe, also in cells. So there's immune cells that are very important to regulate our immune system. They're called regulatory T cells. And in order for them to function, they need to go through kind of nutrient cycling. So this mTOR that we talked about the last time a little bit, this kind of nutrient switch or nutrient signal. And it found in the study that it needed 12 hours like of on and off, so of food and no food, for the signaling to keep oscillating and to keep going, and for the proper maturation or functioning of these important regulatory immune cells. So yes, I would say 12 hours is a good time period to fast every day.
So first of all, we've discussed on this show dietary interventions and how they affect transgenerationally through germline alteration. We've done a show, and we showed, first of all, we showed by studying some still available hunter-gatherer civilizations. I want to say like the Nuiji or something like that. They're never in ketosis. So this idea that we're supposed to be in ketosis, we would have been in ketosis. Well, we would have only been in ketosis if we couldn't find food. And the signal to your body when you can't find food, and we see this in female competitive athletes that have to make weight. They lose a lot of weight. They lose their period, right? They can't. Why? Because from an evolutionary perspective, she's starving herself. And so she could not have a baby right now. She can't feed herself. She can't feed a baby. So we shut off the reproductive process, number one. But when you starve yourself day in and day out, and that's what people are doing when they have one meal a day. You're not a lion. You're not a snake. You're a human being. Okay?
Exactly.
Stop looking at snakes and lions and go, oh, they only eat once a day. And by the way, that's complete bullshit. Lions eat multiple times a day. They may eat and lay down for a while, but they get back up. And if they find something, they eat it. But this idea that only through some form of starvation will we prolong life, it's completely misguided, number one. And number two, if you and your husband are really crazy about intermittent fasting, you eat one meal a day and you're checking your ketone levels and you guys are rocking it, and you're going on the fasting cruise next summer with all your fasting friends and all that, and you get pregnant at that moment in time, your baby will be encoded to come into a world that lacks abundance. Your baby is going to be, you're going to create a baby that has to survive in a world that lacks abundance, which means that baby will end up becoming metabolically challenged as it gets older, because they expected the baby to be born and starved most of the time. Okay, right. These are facts. These are transgenerational epigenetic effects that are passed on. If you want to see what starvation can do, look at the countries that have had famines, real famines. Ireland, Russia. They have the highest rate of depression and alcoholism. You know why? Because the transgenerational effects of dying, starving to death, and watching other people starve to death encodes the body in such a way that the offspring are sad, depressed. They're worried about, they don't know why they're sad and depressed. So the way you eat and the way you live imprints your offspring. This is powerful medicine we're talking about here. Diet is powerful medicine.
Yeah,
so,
that's right. And I want to make a differentiation between fasting and starvation here, because this is also often used interchangeably, also in the literature, and this is a problem. So starvation, we really talk about when you run into, as you said, you run into kind of some nutrient deficit. And this happens when you do this for way too long, you fast yourself for way too long, or you calorically restrict yourself for way too long. Then you run into these effects, and yes, then you have all these like transgenerational effects and such. And this is why I stress that short, or twice a year, let's say, periods of prolonged fasting in a healthy human or somebody who is at least adequately nourished, this is probably where we can combine the most benefits of fasting, where you don't run into starvation. Because if you fast for, anywhere between 4 to 21 days as an adequately nourished human, once a year, maybe twice a year, you will not run into starvation. You will have the resources. This is going to be fine. This is going to be very beneficial. But if you do this either too much, or you do this, on a smaller scale, but every day, yes, you will run into these issues that you just mentioned. Sorry, I'm having trouble hearing you.
What I want to do is I want to take a break, and when we come back, I want to talk about how you see fasting being done right. And you've talked about this before. So let's do this. Let's take a quick commercial break before we have any other technical problems, and we'll be right back with Franziska Graef. Stay tuned. I would easily say that I am the hugest proponent you will ever meet to doing anything that will improve the quality of my sleep. And that's because sleep is linked to just about every metabolic disorder we see in our population today. One of the easiest things you can do to improve the quality of your sleep is to get a pillow that can be shaped into the exact form factor that allows you to get your best night's sleep. And that is MyPillow. I've been sleeping with MyPillow for a few years now, and I can tell you that when I have to travel and stay in hotels, I don't get a good night's sleep because I don't have MyPillow with me. Right now, you can save up to 60% off of everything offered to improve the quality of your sleep at shrnetwork.biz/mypillow when you use the code SHR. Or you can call toll-free 800-889-4938. And remember to use code SHR to save up to 60% off of everything at their website. Remember those rectangular toaster pastries you used to love when you were a kid? Well, Legendary Foods has just made them better. The new cake-style tasty pastry is like nothing you've ever had before. With 20 grams of high-quality protein and less than 1 gram of sugar, you'll feel like you're cheating, but you're not. Go to shrnetwork.biz/legendary and use the code SHR10 to save 10% off your purchase of tasty pastries. Now available available in cookies and cream, red velvet cake, birthday cake, blueberry, strawberry, brown sugar cinnamon, and hot fudge sundae. Go to shrnetwork.biz/legendary and use code SHR10 today. Microbes make up your immune system. That's why I'm really excited about P3OM. P3OM is a patented probiotic that might be the most effective probiotic ever developed. P3OM fights bad bacteria and strengthens immunity. Basically a germ-fighting superhero. But it also helps digestion, speeds up metabolism, and increases energy throughout the day. That's way more than I thought a probiotic could do. And just when I thought P3OM couldn't get any more powerful, I watched a video that you can find at shrnetwork.biz/P3-OM of this probiotic literally breaking down a piece of steak. After I saw that, I was all in. Here's some more awesome news. You can get 10% off P3OM right now by going to shrnetwork.biz/P3-OM and by using the coupon code SHR10. And if you order it and it's not everything that you thought it would be, they will give you 100% of your money back, no questions asked. So if you want to protect yourself from whatever bug is floating around this year and take your digestion to a new level, visit shrnetwork.biz/P3-OM and use the code SHR10 to save 10% off today. Have you been struggling to achieve results in the gym? Trouble sleeping through the night? Overwhelmed with stress or anxiety? Look no further than Infiniwell supplements. They have designed products to address specific needs like muscle growth, hormone balance, sleep, and anxiety from the first use. Infiniwell helps you live well. Go to shrnetwork.biz/bewell, that's BEWELL, and use code SHR20 and start living well today. Redcon One's new BAR bar is the ultimate soft-baked protein-packed snack bar, powered by peanut butter. Perfect for while on the go to help curb hunger or sneaky sweet tooth cravings. With 20 grams of protein, use as a meal replacement bar or when you're in need of a high-protein snack. Eat a Redcon One bar as a midday snack or for fuel before an intense training session. Go to shrnetwork.biz/Redcon1 and use the code SHR25 and save 25% off these delicious bars today.
This is the Superhuman Channel, doing reps with the weight of the world.
Welcome back. Hey, we're working.
Yay.
We're talking with Franziska Graef. Every now and then we're talking with her because we keep losing the connection. And we're talking about fasting. And really, it's true. From what fasting started out as to what it is today, it's completely morphed into something different. And it really is a form of time-restricted feeding because several good studies show that the weight loss from fasting is simply because you're not eating as much. That's all it is. Most people can't shovel all that food in 8 hours. They just can't. And so really the end result is you're eating less. And that's the only magic in fasting. But at the same time, taking it too far can have deleterious effects on your body. We talked about that with Joel Green about glucagon and insulin sensitivity and all sorts of things that can go haywire when you take it too far. So there is a sensible way to use fasting. In fact, some scientists on my show alluded to it without actually saying this is the way to use it. Dr. Thomas Seyfried, when I questioned him the first time he was on the show, and I said, Dr. Seyfried, he was talking about his book, Cancer as a Metabolic Disease. I said, Dr. Seyfried, if you found out you had cancer tomorrow, what would you do? He said, the first thing I would do is fast for 3 to 4 days. Interesting. So he's not going to start doing intermittent fasting every single day. He's going to start it off with 3 to 4 days. And there's a doctor in California who I can't think of. He's also an oncologist. And he said people should fast for 1 week once a year so that they eradicate all the potential tumor cells that are growing in their body. And this is kind of what you're promoting, isn't it, Franziska?
That's exactly what I'm promoting. Yes, this is exactly true. And, first of all, you can distinguish between, fasting for the healthy and fasting as a therapy,
Yes.
And this is a little bit different in that you have to be a little bit more careful, of course, if you're already suffering from a disease that you're trying to work with or to fix, as opposed to doing it preventatively. For example, I have my parents fast twice a year for 1 week, and they don't have any, chronic or any disease that we know of yet, and so they can do this relatively safely. And in the beginning, I had them do this under supervision the first 2-3 times, and this is also important. that you look for somebody, if you do a prolonged fast, that is longer than 3 days, that you maybe have a doctor or some kind of clinic that can accompany you. And then if you don't take any medication, that's another big caveat, because as you know, maybe with alcohol, when you haven't been eating, and you're drinking, it becomes much more potent. And this is true for any other drug as well. So I really caution against this, any kind of prolonged fasting or experiments with fasting. If you're taking any drugs, if you have a disease, you do not do this unsupervised. This is really, really important. But yeah, if let's say you're healthy and want to do this preventatively, I would say, once, or if you can fit it in twice a year, let's say in the spring and in the fall. And how this looks like, it can be modified in certain ways, but basically what we recommend. So there is water fasting. This is where it originally, came from. But water fasting, and it's still done today. There's a clinic in California where you can do this. It's quite harsh. If you only have water for 5 to 7 days or even longer, this is pretty extreme. And there's a physician in Germany called Otto Buchinger. Maybe you've heard of him, Buchinger fasting. This is applied here a lot. And he's taken this water fast and modified it a little bit and added some broth and juice and tea and honey. And now we have, or my colleagues here in Berlin and other doctors have modified this even a little bit more. And what comes out of it is basically a protocol that, it doesn't have to be, you don't have to buy prepackaged stuff, or it doesn't have to be very expensive, but basically what you try to do is ingest between 200 to 500 calories a day.
Mm-hmm.
So that's, between, let's say, 200 milliliters to 800 milliliters of juice, and also importantly, not high sugar juice, so not orange juice, but, juice that is lower in sugar. And this helps, buffer the effects of fasting a little bit. So you preserve some more of your muscle mass if you take in a little bit of glucose. And it's not, water fasting can be quite harsh in terms of the side effects, like you have headaches and muscle pain and all of this. And this, if you have this modified kind of fasting, it's a little bit buffered by that. And then you do this for, anywhere between 3 to 21 days. This is done based on, how much you weigh, what your goals are, if you are healthy, if you have a disease, and so on and so forth. And there is some other things to really know about this, which is in the beginning, you have to start eating a little bit less and less the 2 days beforehand. And then you have to slowly start eating again after you come off the fast. So this is in a nutshell kind of the type of fasting that I would encourage, and that I or we and my colleagues here and I do with patients. So we have a study running with multiple sclerosis patients, for example, where we do this, and we see extremely good effects. Like, there's one example where there's a patient who cannot, multiple sclerosis affects everything, like the way you can walk, or some people sit in a wheelchair and such. And so there's this one lady who basically, she cannot get up the stairs and down herself. She basically cannot walk. Her coordination is off. Everything is very inflamed. And then she goes on a 7 or 10 day fast that I just described, And after that fast, she walks like you wouldn't believe that she has multiple sclerosis.
Right.
And so this is, these are the kind of effects that you can see. Now, this isn't, at this point, a one-time fast isn't a cure. Like, the multiple sclerosis will come back, after a while. So then
once they start eating, this is the thing. I know several people who have MS that use fasting.
Yes.
And they use like a 2 or 3 day fast once a month.
Yeah.
And when they come out of the fast, they feel marvelous.
Yeah.
And, I keep coming back with them that there's something wrong with them, that when they start putting food in their stomach, it's escaping and it's causing this range of inflammation that's attacking the nerves and everything else. It's just, it's shocking to me that just by not eating, and when you think about not eating, part of fasting is raising the alert system of the body to the highest level, because starvation that's like when you're starving, the body can say, oh, I have bursitis. We're not going to worry about that. And it lasts you for years. You always have pain. But when you starve, that pain goes away because the body goes, oh, we have really big problems. Let's just get this stuff done and let's move past it. But there's another component. I really believe strongly that part of the aging phenotype is actually the buildup of metabolic debris. And that could be foods you eat that escape into tissue. It could be iron overload. It could be so many things. And when somebody starves themselves or fasts, as you say, for a week, miraculously, they feel great. But then as soon as they start eating again, they get sick again. It seems to me that somebody would be looking into this and going, okay, let's take a group from a metabolomics lab. And this person has been fasting for a week. And now let's watch when they eat. Let's see what it becomes. Where's this food going? What is it doing? Because to me, I think we could figure out why people get MS if they did that.
Yeah, I think one of the hints that we already know is that basically you can think about what you do when you fast is you take away the energy from the immune system, and so all of a sudden your body, is busy doing other stuff and doesn't have, so to speak, the energy to maintain this expensive immune response, whether this is good or bad, but in multiple sclerosis or in any other chronic inflammation, this is bad. And so if you don't feed that, similar with cancer, if you don't feed it, it's not going to grow. There's not going to be the inflammation. And but what I do want to say, it's not, you're right. I mean, it does come back, and we see this too, but it also, it can in some cases slow the progression, and it also can, reverse some of the disease phenotypes. And this is unheard of with any kind of other treatment. And you only see this, I want to stress this, you only see this with a prolonged fasting periods, like anything over 4 days, and that's why if you repeat this, and this is, you mentioned this fasting mimicking diet, this researcher, Valderlongo, who developed this in California. Yeah, he was trying to make something basically that people can do over and over and over and over again, and not go into any kind of depletion. Also make it easier because it's prepackaged. People don't have to worry about count calories or whatever. But of course, in the end, you also make money off of that, which can be, it's a whole other story.
Yeah, that's the problem. When in the 80s, in the 1980s, I did a diet to lose weight before going back to New York for Christmas. Mm-hmm. I was about 25 years old. And what I did was I drank a concoction made from maple syrup, lemon juice, and cayenne pepper. Mm-hmm. And that's all I was allowed to drink. I drank that whenever I wanted to throughout the day. And I did that fast for 21 days. And I did lose a lot of weight. But you know what? I continued to exercise. And one day I had this burning feeling in my chest while I was running. And I went to the doctor and they checked my heart. They said, well, you didn't have a heart attack, but there was a presence of an enzyme or a protein that showed that my heart was struggling in my blood. So when you do these kind of fasts, don't think you're going to go jogging. Don't think you're going to exercise. You just have to sit around because you can actually hurt yourself pretty badly if you're not careful.
Yeah. The only thing that is recommended is mild movement. It's okay to do and encouraged to do mild movement, but any kind of strenuous exercise is not ideal. And again, I really think this is long. 21 days is about as long as I would recommend anybody to go. This was probably something that should have been done, under supervision. But I know, of course.
Well, and Franziska, you know how I broke my fast? I drank a bottle of wine. And I couldn't get out of bed the next morning. I couldn't. I laid there and I couldn't move. I was after fasting for 21 days, and then I drank a bottle of wine, and I could have hurt myself. I really could have hurt myself.
You could have. You could have. Yeah. No, this is true. Yeah. So you have to be careful. Yeah.
So we have a couple questions I want to work in here. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our last commercial break real quick, And then when we come back, we got questions from the audience. Stay tuned. You are watching and listening to Superhuman Radio.
Dogs should be powered by fat and protein, not carbs. That's why Visionary Pet makes low-carb, ketogenic dog food for dogs of all breeds and life stages. From kibble to freeze-dried and even low-carb treats, all Visionary Pet recipes are very low-carb, ketogenic, and made with 100% real meat protein. Shop now and use code SHR for 20% off your first order today. Your dog deserves the lifelong benefits of optimal nutrition. Make the switch to Visionary and see why smart dogs eat low carb.
Being superhuman means being conscientious about the choices we make. White Oak Pastures is superhuman when it comes to raising livestock. They're committed to animal welfare, land regeneration, and rural revival. They responsibly manage the entire process from the pasture to your doorstep. High quality, pasture raised, great tasting meat from a farm you can trust. Full nose to tail selections. They even have options for your pet. Go to shrnetwork.biz/White Oak and use the code SUPERHUMAN to save 10% off your entire first order.
New Mass Pro Synthagen X2 just upped its own legendary game. To distance itself even further from the rest of the pack, Synthagen X2 now has double the key active ingredients. If you've ever wondered what steroid-like recovery feels like, Synthagen X2 delivers. See why others compare it favorably to powerful bodybuilding drugs at synthagen.com. Mass Pro Synthagen. When you train with it, you'll gain with it.
Every day, there's a new wellness trend. Eat that, do this, avoid those. How do you know where to start or who to trust? InsideTracker helps you cut through the noise by analyzing your blood, your DNA, your lifestyle, and your fitness tracker to provide you with a science-backed, trackable action plan on how to live, age, and perform better. Personalized, one-size-fits-one recommendations to help you optimize you. So head to insidetracker.com/superhuman today and save $200 on InsideTracker's ultimate plan plus free inner age and enjoy 25% off site-wide to give the gift of personalized health.
This is the Superhuman Channel, where brawn and brains finally meet.
Welcome back. We're going to get through everybody's questions real quick here. We're talking with Franziska Graef. This is fascinating because I hurt myself with prolonged, excessive, and aggressive fasting over the past decade. I know I have problems that cannot be explained. And the only thing I can think of is it's because of my approach to fasting. So let's see here. We have questions. We'll work from the top down. So New York Seng says, RC Old, I am wondering about the pros and cons of a 40-hour fast versus sarcopenia. So he's worried about muscle loss. Do we see a lot of muscle loss early on in a fast?
Yes, actually, this is how the body, so the first source of nutrients the body goes after is the glycogen stored in the liver. You know, this is usually depleted after, depends how much you have stored, 12 to 24 hours. Then in the first, 1 to 2 days later, you start going into more muscle loss. But then if you keep with the fast, your body switches, it knows, no, I have to save my muscle, and it's going to go into using fat. And actually, that's also why in the beginning you lose weight very fast, but then the longer you fast, your weight loss per day gets smaller and smaller because your body becomes, first of all, more efficient. It also uses almost purely fat. And then this is another reason why I mentioned that, I'm a little bit more in favor to go away from a pure water fast towards, something where you substitute a little bit of sugar, a little bit of honey, a little bit of juice, a little bit of glucose, which will also prevent muscle loss. But 40 hours, is, again, this is more this intermittent fasting. I wouldn't count this as prolonged fasting yet.
Okay. Claude Le Vertu says, I've fasted for decades, never been sold on intermittent being effective for much. Yes, there are benefits to eating less, but this is another ineffective pop culture shortcut to real fasting. So that's an opinion piece there. Okay, so AG says, doesn't fasting for prolonged periods or long periods make you permanently insulin sensitive? Nothing makes you permanent. You could be permanently insulin sensitive today, and tomorrow what you do, you short sleep, you eat lots of sugar, and you won't be sensitive tomorrow. Scott Conley may have said that. He wasn't right about everything, but he was a smart guy. What do you think?
Yeah, so no, definitely not permanently. And this is actually this is also very interesting. Yes, fasting in the first few days as well. Yes, you become actually less insulin or more insulin resistant, which is something you don't want in the long term. But this is adaptive, because if you think about it, your body has to redistribute all these metabolites, including glucose. It's very important when you're fasting. And so it actually does this for a reason, that you don't want your glucose to go somewhere where you don't need it, like in your muscles and such. You want it to go to your brain. Therefore,
Right.
yes, you do become, insulin resistant when you fast for the first couple of days. But then, and this is why also prolonged fasting is so important, after you exceed this, your body adapts and you become way more insulin sensitive, actually. And so that's why also intermittent fasting, maybe, maybe if you continuously intermittent fast, you never make it past that period.
I was just thinking that, and probably makes people insulin resistant over time. So this is fascinating from an evolutionary perspective. It's like if you have a big house and you have the air conditioner on, but you never go in that back bedroom, you shut the vent off. Why are you going to cool the vent in that room that you never use? The body does the same thing. It's like, wow, we're scarce. The brain needs glucose first, and then some other organs. Muscles don't need it, so let's turn the vents off. Let's make the muscles insulin resistant. Yeah, make them insulin resistant, so that available glucose is out here for us and not in the muscles. That's brilliant. From an evolutionary perspective, it makes exact sense.
Exactly.
Fantastic. Yeah. So let's see here. Jeff Rui says, speaking on the scenario of hunter-gatherers, doesn't blood type play any factor or role in intermittent fasting? I got to be honest with you, Jeff, and I'll let Franziska chime in, but I've lost all faith in that whole blood type dieting thing. I really have. But go ahead. What do you think?
Yeah, I cannot speak to that. I am not aware of any studies showing any effect on blood type and fasting, so I don't know.
Well, and think about it. So fasting, or the ability to cope with not having food, is on the hierarchy of needs one of the most important ones. And we would not have certain blood types that do better with coping with starvation than others. It would be something from an evolutionary standpoint. If you're on this planet today, then somebody way back in your past was able to get by without eating for a few days and not die.
That's correct. Yeah.
So I don't think blood type is going to play any. And then Bob Burke says, thank God you were young. Yes, I know. He's talking about, I was so stupid when I was young. I was reckless. I have so many injuries because of the stupid things I did. My mother used to say, you jump too fast and you don't think. And that's true. That's who I was when I was a young man. And I did. I fasted. I exercised while I was fasting. I hurt my heart while I was doing it. And then I topped it all off with a bottle of wine at TGI Fridays one night with some girl, went back to my home, laid down in my bed that night. I couldn't get out of bed the next morning. I'm not exaggerating. I tried to roll. I couldn't move. I laid there for about 3 hours before I was able to get out of bed. And that was from fasting and having alcohol at the same time. That's what that was. I am lucky that I was young. Let's see here. We have two more things here. Claude says, Franziska, you mentioned your parents fast twice annually. Just curious as to their age and how they get through it. Also, how do you manage it while also super busy? And that's true. That has a lot to do with it too.
Yeah. So my parents are in their late 50s, early 60s. And they get through it actually very, very fine. And they, in the beginning, so the first few times that they did this, I had them fast in the clinic under supervision, because you just don't know how your body responds, especially if you've never done it. So that was very important. And then, I supervised them also for one of their other fasts. And then they become comfortable with it. And so now they can do this on their own, or they do this together at least. So they're not, all by themselves in their apartment. And they do this the following way. One time of the fast, they do this while they work still, because they don't want to take their precious vacation and fast.
Right.
And they get through this. And the first couple of days are always the hardest, because until your body has, reached that comfortable fasting state where you don't actually feel hungry anymore. And my dad always tells me he feels really energetic and he gets a lot done around the house and the garden. And then another time, the second time, they do take the vacation, because it is also about, kind of like I don't want to say spiritual reset, but just kind of,
a recharge,
calming yourself, a recharge. Yeah.
Maybe being in the sun and relaxing. And I think that's very important. We don't do enough of that. At least in Europe,
exactly.
They take the whole month of August off. They're so brilliant. Here in the United States, we're so proud of working ourselves into the ground. It's
I know, right? Yeah. And for me, it's similar for me. I try to fast, well, I haven't fasted for a while because I'm pregnant, and this is a contraindication as well. You do not fast, when you're pregnant, or if you have an eating disorder. So there's also some contraindications. But other than that, I try to do it one time, while I work, and, I get through it. I start on a Friday. And so then by the time Monday rolls around, I'm already, in a good fasting state, and I can continue my work. And then I try to do another period where I actually take time off. And this is the whole purpose of this, taking time off to slow down and to fast. Yeah.
Well, last question, and this is a combination question, because AG says, while fasting, do you think something like Hoodia, which suppresses appetite, would be good? But more, the other question I have is it important for the fasting to shut off mTOR? And if not, could you not just take free-form amino acids, and maybe essential amino acids in those early days to keep any muscle loss from occurring?
Yeah. So I would recommend against taking any supplement to shut hunger off, because really, you need the signaling to for your body to notice too that, okay, now I'm merging into a fast, and then the hunger will stop. And usually, I don't feel hunger after a day or two, and this will also improve the more often you do this, And then with the amino acids, I mean, I don't know, there's no studies on that, but I would also advise against that, just because, we just don't know what it does when you fast and you take some amino acids. And I would be very careful with that. We know that a little bit of glucose is okay and doesn't either destroy the effect of fasting or give you any side effects, but I don't know. I cannot speak towards what would happen if you take some.
I know that whenever I did long-term fasts, I became euphoric, and I didn't want to eat, because I knew that once I ate, this was going to go away.
Yes.
So that around the second day, I become euphoric, and I don't want to eat, because I love the way I feel. I feel sharp and energetic. And then, of course, Claude Lover 2 says, thank you both. Great show. And parenthetically, congratulations on your baby, Franziska.
Thank you.
I didn't even know you had, he must have said it. I didn't hear it. Congratulations. That's wonderful. Wonderful. Okay, look, this is a discussion we can carry on some other time. If you have other questions for Franziska, email them to onair@superhumanradio.net. Thank you so much for making time to come back a second time and finish this interview.
Welcome. Thank you for having me. That was fun.
Talk again soon. Take care. And then tomorrow we have a good show. I'm trying to think what it is tomorrow. I think Joel Green is on tomorrow. Some anti-aging hacks that come from his latest book on the immunity code and understanding how to use your immune system to get better results in everything that you do. So we will see everybody tomorrow. Thank you so much for being here today and tolerating my technical difficulties. And